Her name is Charlotte Miller, and today she turns 60, a retired elementary school librarian from Asheville, North Carolina. Charlotte is a soft-spoken woman known for her warm smile and homemade apple pie. She's a mother, a grandmother, and for 3 decades, she believed she was the glue holding her family together. The kind of woman who remembers everyone's favorite dish and always sets the table just right. Not for praise, but because it mattered to her. This particular day was special. Not only her 60th birthday, but also her grandson Liam's first day of 4th grade. Charlotte spent the afternoon baking, cooking, and decorating. Roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, cornbread, fresh lemonade, and her famous mac and cheese. Everything smelled like love and tradition. But when the family finally arrived, her son Nathan, his wife Aria, little Liam, and her husband Caleb, something felt off. The cake Nathan brought said, "Congratulations, Liam," and not a single candle bore her name. Caleb complained about the lack of wine, and Liam demanded another fork, expecting her to fetch it. As the laughter grew around her, Charlotte sat in silence, invisible in her own celebration. Charlotte stood in the kitchen, her hands trembling slightly as she wiped them on her apron. Her heart felt like it had been gently squeezed all evening, a quiet pain that no one else seemed to notice. As the family chattered and laughed over dinner, her own presence felt like an afterthought. Then it happened. Liam, mid-bite, dropped his fork onto the floor with a clang. He didn't even glance her way. "Grandma," he barked, "go get me another one." Charlotte froze, blinking at her grandson. Aria, ever the polished daughter-in-law, smiled sweetly and called across the table, "Charlotte, where do you keep the extra silverware? I'll get it for him." Before she could respond, Caleb chimed in with his usual bite. "Oh, come on, just grab the fork for the kid, will you?" It's not rocket science. Nathan, seated at the other end, didn't say a word, too immersed in his phone to notice the weight in his mother's eyes. That's when something shifted inside her. Charlotte stood, not to fetch a fork, not to accommodate another careless demand, but to walk away. Silently, she stepped into her bedroom and began packing. She pulled out a worn suitcase from under the bed and started folding her clothes with a methodical calmness. Each blouse folded was a chapter closed. Each sock packed was a boundary drawn. She grabbed the manila envelope that held her bank statements, savings she'd quietly built from selling handmade crafts at the farmer's market. Caleb had never bothered to ask where the money came from. He never cared. Charlotte remembered the early days, how she'd given up her job to raise Nathan, how Caleb's paychecks rarely made it home, always vanishing into poker games and bar tabs. He belittled her budgeting, criticized her every purchase, and made her feel like a parasite in her own home. She had stayed for Nathan. She had believed in the fairy tale of holding a family together, but tonight, surrounded by laughter that felt like nails on a chalkboard, she realized this wasn't family anymore. This was a routine, one where love was conditional, appreciation was rare, and she was only visible when someone needed something. She zipped up her suitcase and walked back into the dining room. The chatter stopped. Liam now had a new fork, clearly retrieved by Aria, and no one had noticed her absence, until now. Charlotte stood behind her chair and looked at Caleb. Her voice was calm, steady, almost serene. "I want a divorce." Forks clattered. The room froze. Caleb's face turned crimson. "You've lost your mind," he growled. "You're nearly 70 and you want a divorce now? What will people think?" Nathan finally looked up, blinking like he was waking from a dream. "Mom, what are you doing? We're just trying to have dinner here." But Charlotte only smiled. Not bitterly, not angrily, just free. "I'm done," she said. "And if none of you ever noticed me until now, maybe it's because you never really wanted to." And with that, she walked back to her suitcase and waited for the world to catch up. Charlotte barely reached the front door with her suitcase before Arya stepped in front of her, blocking the way with a composed, too sweet smile and a firm grip on her son's shoulder. "Charlotte," she began gently, "I think you're overreacting. Every family has rough patches. Let's just sit down and talk this through." But her eyes, cold, calculating, told a different story. Then, in a voice low enough that only Charlotte could hear, Arya leaned in and whispered, "Didn't we agree not to bring up divorce again?" Charlotte took a step back. Her expression didn't change, but the shift in her voice was immediate, icier than Arya had ever heard. "Well," she replied, "I've changed my mind. Is that going to be a problem?" The room was suddenly too quiet. Caleb stared, confused, as if unsure whether this was some kind of joke. Nathan got up, blocking the door like a child trying to stop the wind. "Mom, what do you mean none of us?" he said, his voice rising with panic. "What are you trying to say?" "I mean," Charlotte said slowly, "I'm leaving all of you. I don't want phone calls, I don't want apologies, I don't want explanations. This time I'm done being the one who keeps things from falling apart." She nudged her suitcase forward again, but Arya didn't move. Instead, she grabbed Charlotte's arm with one hand, tears forming in her eyes like clockwork. "What about Liam?" she cried. "Are you really going to let him grow up eating fast food? No bedtime stories, no homemade soup when he's sick? You raised him. He adores you. You're his world." Charlotte blinked, almost laughed. "Then maybe you and his father should learn how to cook." "You can't just walk away from your family," Arya snapped. "You mean your babysitter?" Charlotte shot back. Arya opened her mouth again, but Charlotte had reached her limit. "I've watched you play the perfect daughter-in-law long enough," she said, her voice rising. "You use flattery like a leash. You pretend I'm part of this family, but you only see me as help. Not anymore." Arya stood frozen. Then, out of nowhere, Liam, sweet little Liam, ran up and shoved Charlotte hard. "Don't you touch my mom again!" he shouted. The slap of betrayal landed harder than any shove could, and as Nathan rushed to protect his wife and son, his voice shaking with rage, Charlotte saw the truth, sharp and unrelenting. "You need to apologize to my wife," he demanded. Caleb stood too, red-faced and trembling, joining the symphony of blame. Accusations flew. "You've ruined everything." "Why now?" "You had to make it public." Charlotte stepped back and surveyed them. 3 people yelling at her, trying to make her the villain of their unraveling story. She took a deep breath and said, "Fine. If you want a show, I'll give you one." Then she smiled coldly and turned toward Arya. "I'm sorry," she said, then paused. "But since we're into apologies now, let's talk about Caleb's other family, shall we?" The room went dead silent. Charlotte remained standing in the center, calm as the eye of a storm. "Your father," she said evenly, her gaze fixed on Nathan, "has had another family for over 3 decades. Caleb jolted upright. "Have you lost your mind?" But Charlotte didn't flinch. She turned toward Arya with razor-sharp precision. "You were there when I found out. You helped me look into it. You want to lie now?" Arya's face paled. She looked at Nathan, then at Caleb, then back at the floor. The silence stretched. The weight of truth settled like dust. Nathan finally whispered, "What is she talking about?" Charlotte's voice was steady, precise. Her name is Denise. She lives at 423 Whitmore Avenue, apartment 5B. She has a daughter and a granddaughter, your father's granddaughter. Arya mumbles something unintelligible. Caleb lunged toward Charlotte, but Nathan stepped between them. "Is this true?" he barked at his father. "Tell me. Tell me she's lying." But Caleb's silence spoke volumes. Charlotte laughed bitterly. "I kept my mouth shut for years. I endured his gambling, his drinking, his tantrums. You think this is just about tonight? This is about 3 decades of silence." Nathan, still in shock, collapsed into a chair. Why didn't you say anything sooner?" Charlotte sighed. "Because I believed in protecting this family. I thought silence meant strength. I thought if I stayed quiet, you'd grow up safe. I didn't want you to suffer. But now I realize I suffered so you wouldn't. And what did that buy me? Disrespect, invisibility, and a cancer diagnosis." A collective gasp filled the room. Charlotte nodded slowly. "Yes, cancer. 6 months, they told me. And I finally asked myself, if not now, then when?" Caleb stumbled backward, nearly knocking over his chair. "You're lying. You just want attention." "No," Charlotte replied, stepping toward him. "You wanted to play house with your second family while I played maid in mine. But now the curtains are open. There's no more stage, no more script. Everyone sees the mess now. And I'm not the one who made it." Nathan's voice cracked. "You have cancer. And you didn't tell me." Charlotte turned to him, her face softening. "I did everything I could to protect you. But protecting you meant erasing myself. I don't want to disappear anymore." That was the moment Nathan's expression changed. Not rage, not denial, just sorrow. He had never seen his mother like this. He had never looked at her. Not really. Charlotte's eyes welled, but her voice didn't waver. "I'm done waiting for respect. I'm done asking for love that should have come naturally. From now on, I choose me." Then she turned toward the door again. "No more forks to fetch. No more smiles to fake. No more lies to protect." And with that, Charlotte walked out. Not just from the house, but from a life that never truly saw her. Charlotte didn't cry when she closed the front door behind her. She didn't look back. Her suitcase rolled behind her in gentle rhythm with each step as she walked away from the only home she'd known for over 30 years. A place that had become a museum of sacrifice and silent suffering. She checked into a modest hotel just outside the city. The room was quiet, clean, and, for the first time in a long time, hers alone. That night she didn't sleep much. Her body was exhausted, but her soul felt oddly awakened, like it had been shaken loose from years of numbness. At dawn, she stood by the window, watching the sunlight spill across the parking lot, and whispered to herself, "Now what?" The answer came with a phone call. Joanne, Charlotte's oldest friend, once her business partner at a small weekend market years ago. The woman who had quietly slipped her the evidence of Caleb's secret life, without judgment, without drama, just truth, handed over with love. "Still planning that trip to Santa Fe?" Charlotte asked. Joanne didn't skip a beat. "Only if you're coming with me." Later that day, Joanne, her son Jason, and Jason's wife Emily showed up at the hotel with hugs, coffee, and a plan. They packed Charlotte's things without asking too many questions and brought her to their home in a quiet, sun-drenched neighborhood filled with hummingbirds and laughter. A place that smelled of freshly brewed tea and cinnamon toast. "No pressure to stay forever," Emily said, "but stay as long as you need." Jason chimed in, smiling warmly. You've always been there for us, Charlotte. Let us be there for you now." That night, sitting on the porch with Joanne watching the stars, Charlotte whispered, "I don't know how to live just for me." Joanne gently squeezed her hand. "Then let's find out together." The next morning, Charlotte signed up for a beginner hip-hop dance class, something she'd always wanted to do as a child but never could. The room was filled with 20-somethings in sweatpants and sneakers, wide-eyed when she walked in. But she didn't flinch. She introduced herself with a calm smile and said, "I'm here to dance before I run out of time." And dance she did. Awkwardly at first, but joyfully. Each step was a rebellion. Each movement was freedom. Her body ached, but her spirit soared. She practiced daily, pushing herself not toward perfection, but toward presence. Charlotte wasn't chasing youth. She was honoring the little girl who once danced barefoot in the kitchen, dreaming of more. Within weeks, she had her instructor record her first full routine, not for anyone else, but for herself. She uploaded it to a social platform she could barely navigate, writing only one caption: "I was here." What she didn't expect was the world to notice. The video was never meant to go viral. Charlotte had simply wanted to capture a moment, proof that she had reclaimed a piece of herself. But within days, her dance clip has been viewed thousands of times. Comments poured in from strangers across the country. "You're incredible. My grandma saw this and signed up for Zumba. Thank you for reminding us it's never too late." People began recognizing her on the street, at the corner cafe, the pharmacy, even at the post office. Someone would inevitably whisper, "Isn't that the hip-hop grandma?" Charlotte would smile, laugh softly, and keep walking. Lighter now, her spine straighter than it had been in years. But what surprised her most wasn't the attention. It was how her body responded. She felt stronger. Her joints stopped aching as much. Her skin regained some glow. Even her appetite improved. So she scheduled another checkup, just to see. The doctor, a man in his 40s with kind eyes, flipped through her charts, then looked up in disbelief. "Charlotte," he said slowly, "your scans are clear. No signs of cancer. Nothing. You're in full remission." Her breath caught. "Are you sure?" He nodded, almost smiling. Miracles happen. That night, Charlotte walked along the neighborhood trail alone, leaves crunching under her feet, heart swelling with a kind of gratitude that words couldn't capture. For the first time in her life, she wasn't surviving, she was living. Soon after, she joined a senior community outreach group, teaching rhythm and movement to older adults who had long believed their best years were behind them. She called the class Rediscovering Joy. They didn't just stretch or sway, they laughed, they cried, they remembered who they once were. She also began learning French, a language she'd always adored but never dared to try, and planned a solo trip to Europe, Paris, the Alps, the coasts of Portugal. The world was finally within reach, and she would walk through it without fear or apology. Meanwhile, Charlotte's small business partnership began to grow. Jason had encouraged her to use her sudden online fame to launch a lifestyle brand for active seniors. She agreed, but only if it came from a place of purpose, not profit. Her message was simple: it's never too late to begin again. Through each step, she remained grounded. The past hadn't vanished, but it no longer weighed her down. She had forgiven selectively, loved consciously, let go with clarity. She still danced every day, not for the camera, not for the comments, but for herself, for the girl who waited 60 years to be seen. And each night before bed, Charlotte whispered the same words into the dark: Thank you for waiting for me. She wasn't just growing, she was blooming. One sunny morning, Charlotte stood in front of her mirror, wearing a soft blue dress and a smile that reached all the way to her eyes. Her silver hair was brushed neatly over her shoulders, and around her neck was a pearl necklace, a birthday gift from Jason. She turned slowly, admiring the reflection, not for vanity, but for victory. This was not the face of a woman who had been broken. This was the face of someone who had rebuilt herself. One boundary, one decision, one dance move at a time. The mail had arrived earlier that day. Among the bills and flyers was an envelope from the county clerk's office. Inside, her official divorce certificate. Final, sealed, permanent. Charlotte held it in her hands and felt nothing but peace. She walked to the kitchen, brewed her tea, and watched a hummingbird flit outside her window. For a woman once shackled by obligation, silence had become something sacred. She no longer feared being alone. In fact, she treasured it. Later that afternoon, she visited the community center to check in on her dance students. When she walked in, a group of older women in colorful leggings burst into applause. "You're back!" one of them shouted. "We missed our spirit coach." Another giggled. Charlotte smiled, set down her tote bag, and clapped her hands. "All right, ladies, let's see if you've been practicing." They laughed and cheered, forming a messy, joyful line across the room. As music filled the air, Charlotte took her place at the front and led the routine. Strong, graceful, alive. For every beat they hit, they weren't just moving, they were reclaiming. And in that moment, Charlotte knew this was her purpose. Not the quiet martyrdom of the past, not the thankless service of being wife or mother or grandma with no identity beyond the title. She was here to live, to inspire, and to love herself out loud. One day, long after she was gone, someone might stumble upon her dance video online. They might not know her story. They might never hear about the betrayal, the cancer, the walkout, or the courtroom performance. But they would see a woman, strong, silver-haired, glowing, dancing like her life depended on it. And maybe, just maybe, it would give them the courage to start their own. As the music swelled and laughter rang out, Charlotte twirled under the lights of that modest rec room and whispered to herself, "I didn't just survive, I rose." Charlotte Miller's story isn't just one of heartbreak or survival. It's a testament to the extraordinary power of rediscovery. After decades of giving herself away to roles, responsibilities, and expectations, she learned one of life's most powerful truths. Loving yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. She had been a daughter, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, but never had she simply been Charlotte. And when everything fell apart, when the people she sacrificed for turned their backs, she made a radical choice to choose herself. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't beg for understanding. She simply walked forward. Her story reminds us that it's never too late to start again. Whether you're 16 or 60, you have the right to live with joy, dignity, and freedom. The end of one chapter isn't failure. It's a beginning in disguise. Too often, especially for older women, life becomes a long list of shoulds. Stay quiet, stay married, stay useful. But Charlotte's journey proves that we're allowed to change, no matter how late in the game it seems. If you've been shrinking yourself to keep others comfortable, stop. If you've been waiting for someone else to give you a reason to live fully, don't. Start that hobby. Join that class. Speak your truth. You don't need approval to reclaim your joy. You only need you. So today, take one bold step toward the life you've always put off. You're not too old, you're just getting started. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and share with your friends. Your support keeps these stories alive. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And if today's story touched your heart, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Take care, stay well, and see you in the next story.